So I wanted to talk about the Scorpio Moon and perhaps some of the lessons that having a Scorpio Moon natally can bring about in your life. So some of the karmic perhaps issues of having Scorpio Moon and how these can show up in various emotional uh, chaotic situations, right? Emotionally chaotic situations. So the moon is, from my understanding, I like to think of the moon as um, kind of the symbol of our emotional imprint, our emotional past. It's how it's where we have to look mostly when we want to understand the complexity, perhaps, of what is going on emotionally on a baseline level most of the time um, in the person. And this can, of course, vary according to the different aspects. So moon aspecting other planets will definitely have an effect, and everybody has a unique emotional and moon signature. But there are certain themes that perhaps repeat themselves when it comes to somebody having Scorpio moon. So people having Scorpio moon, there are certain things that will be perhaps similar, you might say. And while you can't really tell just by looking at somebody's birth chart what their um, experiences will be, you can't necessarily predict that just by looking at their chart. But there are certain imprints and certain emotional and karmic lessons that might arise or be repeated or be shown when it comes to a certain moon sign. So, what are some of the themes of Scorpio moon in general, and how can they show up in different ways? So, I think Scorpio is a sign that is very much associated with digging deeper. So, where the previous sign Libra often wants to harmonize and have this kind of airy, light feeling and breezy attitude, maybe socially. Scorpio is actually, Libra wants peace, but Scorpio actually also wants peace in a way, because it's kind of like Scorpio wants to experience peace and to kind of reach that peace inside, but they have to do it through overcoming obstacles and digging deeper. So it's not so much this kind of airy, uh, breezy peace or looking for peace that Libra has. Scorpio is about getting in touch again with your own inner security and inner resources in order to experience peace. So, what do we have to go through? What are some of the hard things that we have to go through in order to come out the other side and experience the peace that we want? Because we want to experience emotional security. Scorpio actually wants to be secure, right? It's a fixed sign. It wants to dig deep. It wants to know. It wants to be sure. It wants certainty, and it wants security. Definitely on some levels that is the case. So I think with Scorpio Moon, there is a sense of digging deep into emotions. Um, so what does that mean? So that means sort of there comes a point, certainly with a lot of people with Scorpio Moon, there comes a point every once in a while where you have to experience your emotions very intensely. They may be difficult emotions, they may be perplexing emotions or confusing emotions, feeling states, mood states. Um, you kind of have to, you hear of this thing of like, sometimes distraction is good, right? And there's also other things going on in your chart. So with Gemini, for example, you might be actually benefiting from some form of distraction. But I think with Scorpio Moon, there is an element of needing to actually, what you hear sometimes is about needing to experience your feelings and your emotions really deeply and really go into it so that you can let it transform, perhaps. Scorpio has to do with transformation, and so that you can let it release. So it's not always enough to just kind of let it pass you by or write it out in a kind of a casual way. Scorpio Moon invites you, if you're looking at astrology, this is a position that um, is in your chart because it is inviting you to actually explore those emotions. And there's different levels that this can take on. There's the just chaotic, confusing level where you find it hard to understand your emotions. There's the level of creativity where you're maybe expressing yourself through music or art or dancing or anything like that to release these intense emotions. And it's actually a positive expression of these emotions rather than just kind of letting it drag you down and maybe go into a deep depression or something. It's important to release these things, right? Some people are there. Some people are artists. Some people are creative artists. Some people have it as their job. They are in touch with this idea of actually expressing your emotions so that you can cathartically release them. And, the digging deep into the emotions is really in order to bring up stuff from the emotional plane that needs looking at. And it needs looking at because, like I said, the moon is your accumulated emotional imprint, right? It's like a stamp that you have collected your emotions. Let's say um, if we're talking about past lives, for example, sometimes I like to explore that idea as well. It's kind of like all the emotional experiences accumulated into this one stamp. And the stamp in this case is Scorpio Moon. So all the emotions, all the emotional experiences, certainly the significant emotional experiences or the emotional reactions that you've had in previous lifetimes, are now in this lifetime as like a stamp of Scorpio Moon. This is the accumulation of everything you've been through emotionally, and it's Scorpio, right? So there's been some tough times. There's been some cathartic, intense times, and now this is your chance in this lifetime, let's say, to actually explore the stuff that you're now dealing with in this lifetime that actually has a lot to do with your past lifetimes. If you want to talk in those terms, sometimes I just like to explore that as well. Or even it has to do with your past in this lifetime. So where you are now actually does have a lot to do with where you were before, right? It's an accumulation. You're emotionally, certainly with the moon, you're emotionally carrying around this signature. You're emotionally carrying, certainly with Scorpio as well, especially with Scorpio. Scorpio doesn't forget easily. So Scorpio is carrying around, in some sense, all the water signs are like this, but in different ways. It's Scorpio is carrying around things that happened in the past um, in their emotional sphere, let's say. So a lot of times Scorpio moons or even other water moons can react very strongly, very emotionally to slights or hurts because it can bring up something that happened in the past, right? It can kind of the stamp of your emotions gets triggered because of something that maybe happened in the past. And Scorpio doesn't forget easily, and Scorpio is mm, being challenged in this lifetime, you could say, to work out how to handle its deep and strong emotional reactions. So some Scorpio moon people or just people with Scorpio signatures can express their scorpionic nature through being vindictive or jealous or overly possessive or um, addictive, addicted to something, right? Other Scorpio moon people or people with Scorpio signatures can express this through, like I say, creativity. Um, there's different ways that you can learn, and the astrology chart has a lot to do with learning. How can we learn in this lifetime? So Scorpio moon has a lot to do with learning how to manage your own emotions and your emotional reactions in a way that it does not harm yourself or other people, right? It's important to remember there's different levels of this. But the emotional plane very much needs looking at. It's like knocking on your heart, like listen to me, pay attention to me, you know. Um, these feelings and these emotions and these mood states, and these kind of perplexing feeling states and mood states and emotions and feelings, and impressions, emotional impressions, need to be looked at. They need to be explored, because you're carrying this accumulated version of all your emotions in the past, let's say. It's now here, but you have to deal with it in a way that is healthy. And I think every time you allow yourself to go and explore a negative or dark or difficult thought, experience, feeling, or mood state or emotion, there is potential to grow and heal from that, right? And to learn. So, for example, I have a Scorpio moon, and I sometimes find myself wanting to, maybe because of some other positions I have, wanting to like ignore a certain thing that comes up for me emotionally or in my head, right? It makes me want to ignore something, makes me want to ignore it. But I think with Scorpio moon, it's actually an indicator that every time you allow yourself to go into that rabbit hole, if you want to call it that, and actually explore it and acknowledge the feeling or the thought or the experience, that is where the potential lies to grow and heal. So instead of ignoring the thoughts or the feelings, or maybe you had some negative thought about somebody, you know, or the mood state, or something feels off. It's about exploring that, in the case of Scorpio moon, right? And I think we don't always want to do that based on maybe some other positions as well. Sometimes we want to ignore things, or we have other things to do, that we don't have time to go into this, deep rabbit hole of emotional, complexities. But with Scorpio moon, there is it's almost like there's an invitation that you need to put time aside in order to really heal. You need to put time aside to actually explore things that you don't necessarily want to explore. And every time you allow yourself, this is kind of a general thing as well. Every time you allow yourself to actually, it's like when you're meditating, the thought comes, just listen to it, but then let it pass. But with Scorpio moon, it's kind of like, yes, listen to it, but really, really listen to it and pay attention to it, right? With meditation, we're definitely not trying to ignore the thoughts with meditation, but it's the first step almost. It's like the first step is acknowledging it. That's what they talk about a lot in meditation, is that when the thought comes, you acknowledge it and then you let it pass. With Scorpio moon, it's almost like you acknowledge it, and that's very important. And then you kind of you don't necessarily have to see. Now I'm thinking, you don't need to necessarily let it like run in your head to the point where you get sick or sad or something like that. Although sadness can bring a lot of healing as well, can bring a lot of digging potential, that you need when you need to dig into something. Sometimes you need to do it through sadness. But I think with Scorpio moon, it's kind of like you need to pay attention to it and go deep into it. Allow it to. Sometimes you need to. There's certain times when you need to let it overcome almost your body. So really feel the emotion. Where do you feel the emotion in your body? Scorpio and Taurus are opposite signs, and Taurus has to do with the physical body and physical objects, let's say. And Scorpio, actually, because it's on that same axis, it actually also has to do with the body. But it's kind of like the emotions and the feelings are stored in the body, and our body gives clues to deeper things that need to be looked at, right? So that's Scorpio. Where Taurus is the body, Taurus is the body, and Scorpio is the sort of the experiences that the body has, that, or the signs that the body shows, that show you that something needs to be looked at, right? Something needs to be looked at. And that's why I think a lot of Scorpio positions are well, sort of, invested or compatible with therapy. It's kind of like, it doesn't work for everybody necessarily, but there's potential there for therapy to work. It's like creativity as well. It's like getting that cathartic release. So some people can get that through various forms of therapy. Again, it's allowing yourself to really go into it and look at it instead of ignoring it. And I think Scorpio moons can struggle a lot with kind of deep, dark, confusing, perplexing emotions. It's like you just want to get rid of them sometimes. But with Scorpio moon, because it's showing that accumulation of emotions, it's like you have to finally deal with it in this lifetime. It's inviting you, this position is inviting you to heal years of emotional hurts, and difficult emotions and feeling states, right? It's allowing you, it's inviting you to allow yourself to really heal and to look at that stuff. And a lot of different things can bring this up. So one thing is, the moon is also the mother. So the mother is definitely a person, can be a person in your life that really, who really brings up stuff emotionally for you. It's like your emotional difficulties or challenges or mood states or feeling states or those negative dark thoughts. They can be tied to the mother in some way. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're having those thoughts or feelings about your mother, although that can happen. It can just mean that the mother is um, somehow tied into it. Somehow your emotions and your feelings and your thoughts might be reflected in the mother in some way, or the mother might show you things about yourself that make you go inside and kind of explore some of these things. So the mother is tied into your emotional world very much, in like a way that makes you want to explore. So it's like she's there to kind of make you explore almost in a way, or she's there to inspire you to explore. And another area that the Scorpio moon depth and desire for sort of exploration and release and healing can come about is through sexual activity. And this can include things like BDSM and kind of darker psychological stuff that we don't necessarily want to talk about or look at. Um, so it's like psychologically you're maybe allowing yourself to release certain baggage through these things. And it can be a very important thing in your life, a very important force in your life, right? So some of these things can definitely make you be more aware of certain parts of yourself, and it's also a way to release certain areas or certain things, certain feelings, certain baggage that you have got going on. So the way I like to think of astrology, especially nowadays, is that there is sort of a deeper reason why we have the chart we have and the positions that we have, and everything makes holistic sense. It's just a matter of putting it together, and we're never going to be able to put everything together in our lifetime, in this one lifetime. There's always going to be more things that are going on that we don't necessarily understand, right? But with the Scorpio moon, if you're trying to understand it, at least a little piece of it is that we struggle emotionally, and it's because we are being asked to release stuff that we're holding on from the past or even other lifetimes, as an emotional imprint. So our emotional reactions can be very strong. They can be, we can be very attached to certain people or things or experiences. We can be addicted, we can be obsessive, we can be vindictive, we can be jealous, we can be possessive, right? Even those things are actually reflections of the kind of emotional imprint that we have as a result of our past or our upbringing, our mother, our previous lives, perhaps. And it is up to us now, certainly in supportive environments, with the support of other people. It's up to us in those environments to sort of, and not in a destructive way. That's the key as well. In a healthy way, to release these things so that we can move on, right? And our moon sign is with us our whole life. Um, our natal moon sign is with us our whole life, and so it's not necessarily that you release something and you will never have the same problem again. You might have the same feelings or the same problem again, but it's about allowing yourself to go explore certain things, and then maybe certain parts of your experience will become easier, as a result of you releasing certain patterns, or certain you've healed certain karma, let's say, if you want to use those terms. So there is a reason and there's a purpose to our struggles, or to our sort of quote unquote negative feeling states and emotions, right? Our perplexing mood states. There's a reason for it. Um, it's something that we've accumulated. It's kind of like our imprint, our emotional imprint, right? And we just need to explore that. And I certainly invite you to do that. And if you have any comments about how you've done your emotional work, let's say, leave a comment down below. And yeah, I'm going to finish up now. So yeah, please do subscribe if you want more content from me, and leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed this or if you got something out of it. And thank you.